Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Work From Home Show. Shout out to all our homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the work from homers out there. I'm Naresh Vissa with Adam Schrader. Today we have Crispin Boyer on the show. He is the #1 best-selling author. Many of his books have reached the New York Times bestseller list. Of the books Zeus the Mighty and also National Geographic Kids series. He has written many of National Geographic for Kids series. Not the entire thing, but that's probably how he's most well known. Crispin Boyer, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, and because you're on the Work From Home Show, the first question I have to ask you is, do you write your books working from home, or do you actually, National Geographic, for example, that's geography, so do you actually travel to the locations, take the pictures, and get to know the area?
Well, I wish I did that, but no, and I do work from home. I think I like to think that I've worked from home before it was cool, but yeah, I've been a contractor since 2008. I left an office job in magazine publishing, and that's when I started writing for National Geographic Kids magazine. And back then I was based out of San Francisco, and it got to a point where my wife and I were like, San Francisco's an expensive city, and since I can work really from anywhere with internet, we decided, well, let's live in a nicer place, live in a less expensive place. So we actually moved to Mexico and lived in the Mexican Caribbean for about 6 years.
That's awesome. Where in the Mexican Caribbean?
So we were pretty far south of Cancun, south of Tulum, almost in Belize. So
wow.
Familiar with that area. We bought a house that was really about as far south as you can get in Mexico before you're in Belize, and it was a fun experience. It was just off the grid. Like, we were really just in this tiny beach town. 20 steps to the ocean, which was awesome. Could be distracting, when you're, I guess when you're working from home, it's nice to live in a place that's inspiring and that you like, but then if it's too inspiring or fun, then it's a little hard maybe to stay focused. So it's easier to procrastinate. And also living that close to the ocean, we went through one almost direct hit of a hurricane, and that was a bit more adventure than we liked, and so I ended up getting some other clients that actually made it more sense to move back to San Francisco. So we moved back there for a while, kind of bounced around, lived in a van for a bit. We bought a camper van and lived in that. Again, I guess, they were all my home, so I was always working from home. And now we live in Hawaii. We ended up buying a farm in Hawaii, so that's my current base of operations. Hopefully, it will be until I'm too old to manage to live on a farm. So, kind of a long story, but yes, I work from home, and also really because I'm a writer, my overhead is pretty low. Like, I just need a laptop, I just need internet, and I need ideally a desk. But I've written entire books on road trips, sitting in the passenger seat of like the van, or on road trips where I just have a little board that I set the laptop on. So it's nice to have that flexibility. At the same time, it's also, it's rough not to have like corporate health insurance. And one thing now that my wife works remotely for her company that's based in San Francisco, so we get health insurance through her. So it's kind of, we kind of have the best of both worlds. We get the corporate health insurance, and we get to live in a place we really want to live.
Well, that's a really, really cool profile story that you have over there. Do you have any kids, or is it just you and your wife?
We don't, and I think that makes it easier. Like, it would have been harder for us to do this with kids that aren't grown and out of the house. So it was kind of a decision we made early on. Like, we wanted to have the flexibility, and I'm not saying you couldn't do this, and there were definitely lots of people we met in Mexico and that have kids, but I don't think particularly that I was up for that challenge.
So you're the main guy for National Geographic Kids, but you don't have any kids.
Exactly. I'm kind of a big kid, so I have to make up for it with being
big kid,
my immaturity.
So I'd like to note he was working from home before working from home was cool. He was doing the van life before van life was cool and could have been an Instagram influencer. You're riding too far out in front of the tide, apparently, to really crush on it.
Maybe, yeah. I did notice that. Well, actually, I guess we were living the van life, and I did see there were a lot of people on YouTube that were also like living the van life. But I don't think I have the skills or the presence to host, like to be to host any kind of video series like that. For me, it's we travel around, we do all these, we live in these beautiful places, but my job itself is just me like staring at the wall, tearing my hair out, trying to write books. So it's not the most glamorous otherwise. But we do have a farm now. Maybe in the next few years, farm life will be cool. We have a bunch of animals, so we'll see. We'll see if I could stay ahead of that trend.
So how do you go about? I mean, like you wrote the one, the National Geographic Kids, why, what is 1,111 answers to everything? Do you just know experts in all the fields and use your network for stuff like that, or how do you go about crafting something that big?
That's part of it, and part of it is National Geographic has a huge network. They have really good fact checkers. They have a lot of experts. I'd say I'm good at taking this just this information and kind of synthesizing it and then spitting it out on the page in a way that entertains young readers. I try and my editors will come to me with they'll kind of pitch me the books, the ideas, like we want to do that book, why, and then we'll be like, well, how many? There's a bunch of why questions, like why is the sky blue? Why do zebras have stripes? And then it's cool. Okay, so then I get a certain amount of time then to come up with the amount of questions, and we picked 1,111 because it was a kind of a fun number. And then once I'm writing it, I'm like, whoa, that's actually a lot of questions. So it's like, oh, what have I gotten myself into?
Although it's like a day with kids, honestly.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I can relate. And so yeah, and then I'll just basically, do research online, do research with sometimes I'll reach out to I do know like experts in different fields, from like astrobiology to medicine. I asked my mom, she was a nurse, and a lot of times just the internet has the answers. You got to be careful because a lot of times the information will be out of date or, which is good. Then National Geographic, their fact checkers vet everything, and then I can get a chance to make sure that nothing gets put into the book that's incorrect. Or, of course, information does go out of date, and new discoveries are made all the time. But I'm not really, telling people how to build a solar, a solar powered boat. I just will write about that it exists, and this is kind of vaguely how it works. So, and yeah, it's a lot of fun and that's what I started writing the nonfiction books, like you were saying, the why, and I have a book called That's Gross and That's Deadly, so it'll cover like all these fun topics for young readers. And then National Geographic wanted to get involved in in fiction, but they wanted to have an educational bent, and that's when we came up with the idea for the Zeus the Mighty series. My editor actually came up with the idea of a hamster in a pet rescue center who thinks that he's Zeus, king of the gods. And she asked me if I would like to then take that idea and run with it. And I was like, yeah, I would love to. And it's my first fiction series, so it's a new skill for me to learn. But they paired me up with some really good, with an awesome editor who's super helpful. And now we're on book 3 of which should be a 7-book series ultimately.
Let me get this straight. So the Zeus the Mighty, the fiction series, National Geographic owns the rights to those. So they're putting that out. That's not like a separate franchise that you created or that you partnered with somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah, it belongs to them, National Geographic, and also I guess Disney, who owns National Geographic. Yeah, so that's pretty much National Geographic's been my publisher. So I haven't really done any. I do take on other clients, and have worked in video games and do writing for video games and that kind of thing too. But all of my books were published through National Geographic, and And if I have an idea that I want to pitch to them, then they'll consider it, and then and that's they've kept me so busy with their ideas that I haven't really had time to pitch them,
Yeah.
which is fine.
There aren't a ton of authors who kind of bounce back and forth between the fiction and the nonfiction world. Is writing those, is it similar? Is it different? Compare and contrast the two, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, nonfiction is, when you're writing about facts and stuff, so there it's all about all of the research that goes into it. And that can be more time consuming because there is a lot of research that goes into, each topic. I just wrote a book for National Geographic called Top Secret that's all about spies and ninjas and top secret technologies and things like that. So that's just a lot of research. And then, I write it in a way that's fun for kids to read. So there's that. The challenge there is the research. The challenge for fiction is, okay, well, now I don't have to really research that much. It just all comes out of my head. So in that way, it's a lot more freedom, a lot more flexibility. But then again, it also all has to come out of my head. So it's more, I guess, heavy lifting creatively. And also you want to keep the story engaging and punchy and with a clear structure, and also that all the action is well conveyed. So it's a lot more effort goes into conveying like the scenes in, I think very much like cinematically in my head. So it's like that everything that's going on in the story is clear, but also you're showing the reader and not telling them. You're not bogging them down with exposition, especially young readers who don't, and you want to keep everything short and snappy. You want to keep the dialogue fun. So, I'd written dialogue and stuff for video games. So in that way, I've got experience doing that. But then just structuring a story and making it flow and making it catchy and fast and making it make sense is the new challenge. And that's where my editors really helped out. When I wrote the first book in the Zeus series, I think we went through about 10 revisions because I had the first draft was just too many characters, too dense, too much action. I really was like, oh, this is, I'm a huge avid reader of fiction since I was a little kid. So I was like, this is my first fiction book. I'm going to really go for broke. And then it just got to be too. So we ended up my editor was calming me down. She said, all right, this is great. Maybe take some of these characters out, save them for later books in the series. These scenes there's way too much going on. This is too complicated. And that's where I really learned, like we made it a much better story. And since then, every book has had in the series had maybe half the revisions. So.
Talking about Zeus the Mighty, is it like a children's book, a picture book, comic book, like young adult, graphic novella? How does it work?
A little bit of all of that. So it's aimed at middle schoolers, so around 8 to 12, okay. And each book is illustrated. We have this awesome illustrator from Scotland named Andy Elkerton, who there's illustrations on just almost every page. And the way this world works in here is with Zeus is a hamster who truly believes he is Zeus, the king of the gods. And whenever he looks around the pet store, he doesn't see a pet store. He sees ancient Greece. He looks at the aquariums and sees the Aegean Sea, or he sees the shelves and he sees mountains and artifacts. And he's joined by all these other animals that are also believe they're the Olympian gods from Greek mythology. So the illustrator then has to do these illustrations that kind of convey that this is happening in a pet store, and say this monster that they're fighting that they see as like the Charybdis, which is a whirlpool monster, is actually just an overflowing toilet. That's kind of how it works. Like just objects in the environment take shape of various creatures and treasures from mythology. So he's got to straddle the world of the real world versus the mythological world. So, and I think he does an amazing job. In fact, some of the illustrations, when I look at him, I think, wow, he visualized this better than I did in my manuscript. So I'm going to go in and tweak it to match more of his illustrations. So in that way, it's a really nice collaborative experience. And because it is National Geographic, it needs to be educational. So then there is a Greek professor of Greek history, who then vets each manuscript and makes sure that I'm staying kind of within the guardrails of the...
So making sure that a hamster being Zeus is believable?
Exactly, yes. It's historically accurate.
You mentioned that it's going to probably be a 7-book series. Does that mean that you chronicled did you lay out the whole timeline before you started, or are you just taking it book by book?
What we did is we picked the Greek myths that we knew we wanted to cover, and then laid those out. And there is like an overall story that kind of flows, whenever they have So it's like a TV show like Star Trek or X-Files, or they have kind of story components that are in certain episodes, and then they have the bottle episodes that can all take place within. You don't have to know the whole overall story. So these books they're more, I would say, more like bottle episodes, and a reader can pick any of the books in the series, read them, and enjoy them. But if they read them in order, then they will see like the growth of the characters and see the return of certain side characters and items that kind of make the overall thing enjoyable. But yeah, so we picked the first book was about the quest for the Golden Fleece. Second book covered the myth of the Minotaur and the maze, and in that book, the maze was actually the heating duct system below the pet shop. So that kind of gives an idea of how they see their world. And so this third book covers the trials of Hercules. There's a new character that's introduced in this one, a hen named Hermes, who wants to be an Olympian, but she can only do it by completing these challenges, which from mythology, Hercules had to complete these challenges to earn immortality. And then moving forward, we want to visit Hades and the underworld. We want to visit the Trojan War and the Odyssey and things like that. So we've got these things planned out. So those. We just want to cover different myths in each book.
You told us a bit about your journey, your background, working from RVs in Mexico and just being on the fly. But I want to take a few steps back and just mention, first off, I think it's amazing the arrangement you have with National Geographic and with Disney. I think that's like a writer's dream come true. So how did you pull that off? And before, you said 2008 is when you joined, or when you got the project or the contract. Before that, what did you do? How did you establish that relationship with Disney and National Geographic?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question, because so when I went to school and got a degree in journalism, and then I worked in newspapers for a few years, and wasn't really thrilled by that career choice, because I was covering things like county commissioner meetings and the local police beat, and it was like local politics, which was kind of exhausting, and the hours were terrible and the pay was even worse. And I'd been really into video games since I was a kid, and I saw that there was a video game magazine based out of Chicago that was hiring, called Electronic Gaming Monthly. And so I applied and got the job, and that was like a dream job. It was a job for a video game magazine, reviewing video games, writing feature stories about upcoming video games. And I worked there for about 12 years. And then magazines themselves started to, as you tell, like the business was going away. And I was actually, believe it or not, getting kind of burned out writing about video games. And I had a friend of mine was writing the video game section for National Geographic Kids magazine. And he was too busy to do it all the time. So I took it on and I started helping him writing it. And in that way, I made a connection with the editors at National Geographic Kids magazine. And they were super nice, they were like really accommodating and easy to work with. And I was thrilled, because National Geographic anything, that's like the major leagues for a writer. So I was really happy to write for anything related to National Geographic. And then once I decided to quit and go freelance, I asked my editors at National Geographic, like, look, I write about video games, which is kind of like, it has to be really colorful language, and it has to be engaging with kids. So I would also like to write about wildlife if you wanted if you had any stories available. And they were like, well, sure, we got all kinds of stuff. So I just gradually started writing cover stories for them. And then they also have a book division, and then they really liked my style of writing and figured that I would be good at covering more denser topics like science and space and things like that. And they asked if I wanted to write a book. My first one for them was about castles, called Everything Castles. And I jumped at that, and it just kind of went from there. So it's, a lot of it was just networking. Like, I knew a friend who wrote for National Geographic Kids, and then part of it was not turning down really any assignment, and then just never burning a bridge. Sometimes I might have taken on more than I could chew, taken on too many projects, and been tempted to say, okay, maybe I'll blow this particular project off, or take this particular project and not do as good of a job. But it's like, no, it's just put in the extra effort, never burn a bridge. And it's just, like you said, led to this amazing arrangement with National Geographic, and now they're owned by Disney. So it's really been just just kind of my managing my network, not never burning a bridge, always doing the best job I can, and being trying what I'm thinking, being easy to work with. Never take any editorial feedback personally or in a bad way. The editors are always trying to make the story better, make the elevate the material, and I'm lucky that I have access to some of the best editors in the world. So yeah, it's just been just really a blessing to get where I'm at in my career.
And then even before you got this deal with National Geographic, were you a journalist? Were you a journalism major in college? Not were you a journalist, but did you always want to be a writer? Did you like work at the school paper? Because it seemed that you didn't have much of a fiction background, so I thought maybe you had the nonfiction reporting background.
Yeah, no, I had a journalism background. That's what my degree was in, and that's I worked for, and even as a kid, I would have English teachers that were very encouraging, saying, you have a gift, you're a good writer, you should focus on And in college, I took journalism. That was my major, and oddly enough, when I first went into college, like when I was a kid, on top of being an avid reader, I always wanted to be a pilot. So my plan was to go to college, and then I wanted to join either the Air Force or even the Army, and as an officer or a non-commissioned officer in the Army, and fly either helicopters for the Army or jets for the Air Force. But then as I was in college, and I was in more of a technical degree at first, computer science, I was like, I don't have a knack for this, but I have a knack for writing. So I said, all right, well, you know what? I'm just going to focus on what I'm good at, like take maybe the path of least resistance and focus on writing. So then I took, communications courses, writing courses, journalism courses, and worked for the school paper, then worked for the local paper, then worked for a nearby newspaper that was the daily, and then got into magazines. So yeah, it always, of course, nonfiction, but always an avid reader of fiction. So, and that's the thing. Once my editors at National Geographic offered me a chance to write fiction, I leapt at it, even though I knew it was a new thing for me, because it's in a way it's on the job training to start this new type of writing. But I have like these great editors that help me out, and I'm learning like a valuable new skill for my career.
That's Crispin Boyer, #1 best-selling author of the Zeus the Mighty series and National Geographic for Kids series as well. The website is kids.nationalgeographic.com. That's kids.nationalgeographic.com. Crispin, any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners, or anything else you'd like to promote?
If I had any piece of advice, like I was saying, for my career, and which has definitely allowed me to work remotely and work in some beautiful places, is like I said, just don't burn any bridges, because you never know, you might be working in a field that's fairly small or fairly large. And, when I worked at video game magazines for 12 years, and then a lot of the people that I worked with, my fellow editors, then went out to work in the video game industry making video games, and now I do writing for them for their video games. So it's just, you never know who you're going to run into. So just be careful not to burn any bridges with anybody, and that way you don't have to, down the line, you won't get burned yourself.
Yep, and that's certainly in any industry, not just in journalism or publishing or video games or travel, any industry. Solid advice. So Crispin Boyer, once again, thank you for joining us on the Work From Home Show. Check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. If you have any questions, email us, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Follow us on social media, like us, tweet us, leave us a review on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever podcasting platform you use. Send us an email if you have any questions, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Send us that review and we'll send you something free of charge. hello@workfromhomeshow.com. And until next week, keep on working from home.